June 1944. The fate of Europe hangs by a thread. Across the English Channel, Hitler's Atlantic Wall waits like a jagged dagger. Millions of American troops are amassed on the shores of England, but there's a problem. The Germans are waiting for them. If the Nazis know exactly where the Allies will strike, this won't be an invasion, it will be a massacre. But at that very moment, something impossible is happening near Dover, in the southeast of England. Thousands of tanks, hundreds of planes, and massive barracks appear. This is the first United States Army group, under the command of General George S. Patton. But there is a secret. The tanks in this army are made of rubber, and the planes are made of wood.
Operation Fortitude is the pinnacle of American military ingenuity, sinister and brilliant in equal measure. They weren't just fighting with weapons, they were fighting with minds. A massive web of lies was woven to feed the Abwehr, German intelligence. But this lie needed a voice, a soul, and most importantly, a source that the Germans would trust 100%. This is where the most complex double agent in history enters the fray.
This is the greatest phantom army in history. In a dimly lit apartment in London, amidst the rhythmic clatter of a typewriter, sits a man, codename Garbo. He isn't American by birth, but his heart beats for the ideals of freedom, and he works directly with American strategists. On the maps before him, he marks the positions of imaginary divisions. Every report he sends to Berlin focuses Hitler's generals on Pas-de-Calais, the wrong place. This man holds no rifle, no bomb, only words. But these words are what will tear up the death warrants of thousands of American boys about to storm the beaches of Normandy.
American strategists used the German obsession with order and discipline against them. The Germans were fed so much fake radio traffic and so many false reports that they couldn't recognize the truth even if it stared them in the face. This isn't just a spy story. It's proof of how the American military can paralyze an enemy without firing a single shot.
The plan is working. Hitler is convinced that the phantom American army will strike at Pas-de-Calais, but everything is hanging by a thread. A single mistake, a single leak, could cause this entire work of genius to collapse, leading to the deaths of thousands of American heroes in the sea. The heart of the operation keeps beating. Garbo is preparing his final report. American genius chose intellect over bullets. Subscribe if you value these secrets. What's the greatest military lie in history? Tell us in the comments. The agent known as Garbo sends his final message to his masters in Berlin. The message is clear. The Allies will make a small diversionary landing in Normandy, but the main blow will come at Pas-de-Calais with Patton's Phantom Army. This message hits the German high command like a bomb. In Berlin, maps are redrawn on Hitler's desk. The most elite panzer divisions are deployed miles away from Normandy to wait at the empty Strait of Dover. American planners sit back and wait. To protect the lives of their own soldiers, they have infected the enemy's brain like a virus.
Turning an agent into a double cross is the most dangerous gamble in the world. Garbo fed the Germans so much accurate but insignificant information that they eventually awarded him the Iron Cross. American intelligence even allowed some small Allied ships to be sunk just to gain the enemy's trust. It was a small and bitter price to pay for a grand victory. This is where American pragmatism came into play, achieving the greatest victory with the least amount of loss.
But the world of espionage is ruthless. Agents from MI5 and the American OSS, the predecessor to the CIA, weigh every word Garbo speaks. If the Germans realize that the tanks at Dover are actually balloons, the Normandy beaches will turn into a meat grinder. Every morning, reconnaissance planes fly over Dover. When the pilots look down, they see perfectly aligned American tank divisions. In reality, down below, only a few privates are holding ropes to keep the massive inflatable tanks from blowing away. As midnight approaches, a storm breaks over the English Channel. While thousands of American soldiers are vomiting and praying in their landing crafts, the lie of a single man is their only shield. The German generals, trusting Garbo's latest report, are sleeping soundly. Tomorrow morning, when the sun rises, the world will never be the same. American genius had already won the victory before the first bullet was even fired. Now, all that remains is for this great lie to be sealed in blood. June 6, 1944, 0400 a.m. The waters of the English Channel are pitch black and ferocious. Thousands of landing crafts, accompanied by the largest armada in history, glide through the darkness toward Normandy. As thousands of young American soldiers approach the shores of Omaha and Utah, they are vomiting, praying, or simply trembling behind armored hatches. But there is something they don't know. They are not entering this hell alone. A massive lie, concocted at a typewriter in London, is currently the strongest armor they wear.
On the morning of D-Day, the greatest military gamble in history was being played out. American ingenuity deployed a sub-plan called Operation Taxable. Our aircraft were dropping tons of aluminum foil strips, known as window, to deceive German radars. On the screens of German operators, a massive phantom fleet appeared to be moving toward Pas-de-Calais instead of Normandy. While the real fleet approached Normandy, the German defenses were busy trying to strike ghosts.
Thousands of ships appear on German radars. But in reality, there are only a few small boats and tons of foil. While German artillery pounds the empty sea, real American Rangers begin climbing the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc. Hitler is still asleep. His generals, however, trust the reports from Garbo so implicitly that they dismiss Normandy as merely a diversionary attack. To them, the real army is still in England, waiting alongside Patton.
This is what American intelligence calls noise management. Instead of drowning the enemy with information, we gave them the exact lie they wanted to see. The Germans were convinced that Patton would never attack without a massive invasion force. So we showed them that non-existent army on paper, over the airwaves, and with strips of foil. American logistics sent real bullets to Normandy and fake bullets into the minds of the Germans.
8 a.m. Omaha Beach has turned into a meat grinder. The sands are stained crimson with American blood, but something miraculous happens. The most critical German panzer divisions are still not moving. Why? Because our Agent Garbo in London flashes another urgent coded message to Berlin. Normandy is just a bait. Do not divert your main forces there. Patton could strike from Dover at any moment. Hitler believes this message. And in that moment, the fate of the war is sealed. As American soldiers on the beach took cover under a hail of bullets, they were unaware that thousands of tanks weren't coming to crush them. Those German tanks had been defeated by a spy's typewriter. By the afternoon, even as the American flag began to wave over the heights of Normandy, the German high command was still waiting for Patton. A lie had saved thousands of American lives.
The most incredible part of this operation is that despite this massive betrayal, Garbo never drew suspicion from the Germans. In fact, he was so successful that even after the war, the Germans still believed he was a loyal hero who had worked for them. The American OSS proved to the world that the strongest fortress can be toppled by a lie told from within. This remains the greatest victory in the history of American espionage.
But the game wasn't over. Establishing a foothold in Normandy was just the beginning. Now, how much longer could they maintain this lie? When would the Germans wake up? How would the American military turn this hard-won time into gold? The War of Shadows is just beginning. Mid-June, 1944. The Allies have managed to establish a beachhead on the shores of Normandy, but the situation remains on a razor's edge. Restless whispers are rising among the German generals. Why? They ask. Why hasn't Patton attacked yet? Why is that massive army at Dover still waiting in England? Suspicion begins to spread like poison through the corridors of Nazi headquarters. For our Agent Garbo, the circle is tightening. A single false report, a single lapse in logic, could mean his end, and a catastrophe for the American soldiers in Normandy.
This stage was the most dangerous phase of Operation Fortitude. American OSS and British MI5 experts played an incredible gamble to disperse German suspicions, the delayed truth tactic. Garbo sent a report to the Germans exactly detailing the number of Allied forces in Normandy, but he intentionally delivered it several hours after the invasion had already begun. The Germans thought, if our agent has such accurate information, then what he says about Patton must also be true. This is the art of manipulating the enemy's mind.
Garbo is at his typewriter in his secret London apartment, drenched in sweat. The questions from the Abwehr, the German intelligence service, are becoming increasingly sharp. Why didn't you inform us of the Normandy raid in time? Garbo responds with that immense American-backed audacity and professionalism. Your operators were asleep. They didn't receive my message. This daring response makes the Germans feel guilty. American genius wins time once again by using the enemy's own bureaucracy against them. July 29, 1944. As the war rages on in full force, shocking news reaches Garbo from Berlin. Adolf Hitler has awarded Garbo the Iron Cross for his superior service and invaluable information. It is one of the most ironic moments in history. Nazi Germany's highest honor of merit is being given to the most loyal servant of American strategy, the man who paved the way for the Allied victory. While laughter erupts in the operation room in London, there is only the tension of the next move in Garbo's eyes.
The Germans believed the fake Phantom Army information provided by Garbo so implicitly that even as the Allies approached Paris, they still kept 22 divisions in Pas-de-Calais, waiting for an army that would never come. American planners hadn't just defeated the enemy, they had made him fall in love with his own stupidity. This medal was, in fact, the bankruptcy certificate of Nazi intelligence. American pragmatism had turned the enemy's greatest source of pride into his greatest vulnerability.
Garbo is no longer just an agent. He is a ghost, removing the greatest obstacles before the Allied armies one by one. As the Germans trust him more, American units advance deeper into France with greater confidence. However, every reward brings a new risk. Gestapo infiltration attempts and the tracking of radio signals push Garbo to the edge of the abyss. Though American OSS agents consider ending the operation to protect their precious asset, Garbo's response is clear. My typewriter will not fall silent until Germany falls.
The American military tradition has always valued technology, but this operation showed us that the human factor can be superior to technology. More effective than billions of dollars worth of tanks and planes was a well-timed, well-told lie. The success of this operation pulled the liberation of Europe after D-Day forward by at least 6 months. This meant tens of thousands of American boys returning home safe and sound.
As the end of the war approaches, the massive web of lies created by Garbo continues to bear fruit. The German army, fleeing from non-existent armies, is being surrounded by real American divisions. Now, only one thing remains: to hide the identity of this shadow warrior forever and turn him into a legend among the dusty pages of history. May 1945. Berlin has fallen. The Nazi Empire has turned to ash. As Allied soldiers celebrate victory in the streets, a typewriter in a small room in London falls silent for the last time. The man known as Garbo, Juan Pujol García, packed his machine and vanished into the shadows. For the American OSS and British intelligence, the mission was over. But there was a problem. Hitler's most loyal men still had no idea Garbo had betrayed them. They still considered him a Nazi hero. There was only one way to protect him. They had to kill him.
American intelligence doctrine mandates that even when an operation ends, its existence must remain a secret. In 1948, an official announcement was made stating that Garbo had died of malaria in Angola. This was the final lie and the greatest deception in history. In reality, with American and British assistance, he had been whisked away to Venezuela. For decades, no one knew that the true savior of Normandy was still alive. This is the ultimate proof of American discretion and professionalism. The greatest heroes are the ones whose names are known to no one.
For 40 years, Garbo lived like a ghost. He ran a small gift shop and raised his children. Even they did not know that their father was the man who fooled Hitler. But in 1984, on the 40th anniversary of D-Day, the truth emerged. The old man returned to those famous shores. The mastermind who changed the course of the war knelt in the cemeteries beneath the American flag. He stood in silent salute to the souls of the thousands of young men he had saved.
Today, Operation Fortitude is still taught as the fundamental case study in psychological warfare at military academies like West Point. American military genius taught us that war is won not just on the front lines, but in the mind of the enemy. A spy's typewriter can be more effective than a division of tanks. The cyber warfare tactics and disinformation strategies we use today were actually born in that dimly lit room in London. on the keys of Garbo's typewriter.
Juan Pujol, or Garbo, was the only person in history to hold both the Member of the Order of the British Empire and the German Iron Cross. But for him, the greatest reward was the people walking freely on the beaches of Normandy. American strategic intelligence, combined with one man's courage, had saved the world from darkness. At the War Room Archives, we will continue to preserve the legacy of these invisible heroes, because history is written not just with bullets, but with brilliance.